The Dogman movie being made by DreamWorks has all the makings of something spectacular.
Dogman, listen up! You're the only one that can stop him!
But do you know everything about the most heroic and funniest police dog out there? The story of Dogman begins when Officer Knight and his partner Greg, a dog, have a terrible accident and are gravely injured. To save both of them, Nurse Lady places the dog's head onto the officer's body, fusing them into one being, Dogman. From that moment on, our protagonist embarks on many wild adventures, fighting crime and saving the day. Along the way, he'll face tons of wacky enemies, including a cunning cat named Petey. Interesting, right? But what I just told you is only the tip of the iceberg. Don't worry, I'll tell you everything you need to know before watching the film about this half-man, half-police dog hero. So get ready, because it's time for another episode of Cinewave. One really important thing to know about DreamWorks' new movie is that it's not an original work, but an adaptation of the world's best-selling children's book series. The first Dogman book was released on August 30th, 2016, less than 10 years ago, and was just the start of an 11-part graphic novel series that became a massive success. Dogman became so popular that it sold 30 million printed copies worldwide. The stories have been translated into over 21 languages because children all around the world love the incredible adventures of this dog-headed police officer. Speaking of that, Dogman isn't the only recurring character in the books, and he won't be the only one to appear in the film either. Of course, he's the star of the show, a police officer with the head of a dog, the body of a man, and the heart of a hero, as everyone always says. He's goofy and clumsy like a dog, but has the courage and sense of justice of Officer Knight, which makes him such a lovable character. The funny thing is that he can't speak like a regular dog, so he has to communicate through body language or signs. Another recurring character is the Chief, who sends Dogman on missions. He's grumpy and constantly argues with the protagonist, but over time, he warms up and becomes a good friend to Dogman. Later on, the Chief even marries Nurse Lady. Yep, the woman responsible for merging Knight and Greg into Dogman. The Chief isn't the only other officer Dogman knows. There's also Maud, another cop who's just as cranky as the Chief. She absolutely hates Dogman because she finds him annoying. Maybe it has something to do with his habit of pooping on her files. Maud has even played the role of an antagonist in some stories, but she'll likely just be the grumpy cop in the movie. It's hard to say though, since her only appearance in the trailer is when Dogman is undergoing surgery. We also can't forget about Sarah, the best reporter in the world and one of Dogman's greatest friends. She reports most of the news about the hero and is already confirmed to be in the movie, as she showed up in some trailer scenes. Now, when it comes to villains, Dogman's most famous enemy is undoubtedly the genius cat criminal Petey, who can build all kinds of crazy machines to mess with civilians, especially the protagonist of the book series. Petey is another character we'll surely see in the movie, as he's already appeared in the trailer, and I bet he'll be the main villain of the movie. We don't know if it will happen in the movie, but Petey doesn't stay evil in the Dogman books. His villainous personality resulted from a very traumatic childhood, and he eventually begins to become a better person, teaching the valuable lesson that it's never too late to right the wrongs of your past. Could Petey's redemption happen at the end of the movie, or maybe in a potential sequel? If you're excited for the Dogman movie to be amazing, drop a comment below with #dog. Not even some fans of Dogman may know that his first appearance wasn't actually in his own book. He first appeared in another famous children's book series, The Adventures of Captain Underpants. That's right, they share the same universe. The first Captain Underpants book was released on September 1st, 1997, many years before Dogman, and there are 12 books in that series. Captain Underpants was also adapted into an animated movie by DreamWorks, which already has a solid track record for adapting kids' books, having also done How to Train Your Dragon, Rise of the Guardians, and The Bad Guys. All of these movies are fantastic, so I think all Dogman fans can breathe a sigh of relief. The movie will likely be great and do justice to the books. The genius behind Dogman is none other than Dave Pilkey, who also created Captain Underpants and several other children's book series. Dave Pilkey was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. He was quite the troublemaker in school and was punished by his teachers. One day, during one of those timeouts, he came up with Captain Underpants and drew his first comic. His classmates loved it, but his teacher wasn't as impressed. She tore up his work and told him he was wasting time making silly stories. Despite this harsh experience, Dave didn't listen to his teacher and followed his dream. This teaches us a valuable lesson. Never give up on your dreams. If Dave had quit after that, we wouldn't have all the amazing fun books he's written or the 2 awesome DreamWorks adaptations. Something really cool is that Dave Pilkey often creates characters that are inspired by himself. Petey, for instance, represents his younger, mischievous self, a kid who felt misunderstood and struggled to express himself. There are also 2 characters in Captain Underpants based on him, Harold and George. Dogman books have many amazing characters that will likely appear in future movie sequels. But before we get into that, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content. When it comes to villains, we've got characters like Flippy, the chief's little fish that evolved after taking a special substance. Because of this, Flippy's brain evolved, gaining some pretty dangerous psychic powers, turning him into a major threat for Dogman and his friends. Luckily, just like Petey, Flippy eventually finds redemption and becomes an ally to the hero. The chances of him showing up as a villain in a sequel, or even in the first movie, are pretty high, since he can be seen in the Chief's fish tank in the trailer. Sure, he doesn't seem too alive, but maybe that's just us. It's very likely he'll still gain his psychic powers and become a villain later. Another character that could show up in a sequel is Lil Petey, a clone of Petey created by the evil cat to help him with his crimes. However, Lil Petey isn't evil and quickly teamed up with Dogman to become a hero, Cat Kid. One of the reasons I think Lil Petey will appear in a sequel is that in the books, he's the one responsible for Petey's redemption and turning him into a good guy. It would make a lot of sense if they adapted this in a second movie where Dogman, Cat Kid, and Petey team up in the climax to defeat a common enemy. Interestingly, while Petey is based on series creator Dave Pilkey, Lil Petey is based on his mom. It's adorable because it's like saying his mom kept him from going down a bad path. And it's pretty funny too, since Petey is Lil Petey's dad, which means their roles are reversed in the Dogman universe. Another character connected to Petey is ADHD, a robot he built to assist in his crimes. Before Petey redeemed himself, he gave the robot to Lil Petey, hoping the power would corrupt him. But instead, Lil Petey made the robot his friend and started using it to help others. So, the plan backfired. This big robot has been destroyed and rebuilt several times, and always helps Lil Petey and his friends solve all kinds of problems. Thankfully, Petey and Lil Petey turned to the good side, because if they hadn't, Dogman would have had a really tough time defeating ADHD. Since the robot is closely tied to Lil Petey, and we already know Lil Petey has a good chance of showing up in a sequel, it's safe to say ADHD would be a part of the cast if the movie gets a sequel. If Petey is the antagonist in the first Dogman movie, the villain of a potential sequel would likely be another major enemy of the canine cop, Piggy. He's a pig who, for some reason, looks a lot like Harry Potter and is extremely selfish, being the leader of an animal villain squad. Unlike Petey, Piggy never finds redemption and doesn't care about his partners. If Petey does redeem himself in a sequel, it would make sense for him and Dogman to need a new villain who has no interest in turning good. And since Piggy works with a whole gang of baddies, Lil Petey and ADHD would also have enemies to fight against. Another character that would be cool to see in a sequel or even in a post-credits scene is Captain Underpants. DreamWorks has already made it clear that they want to focus solely on Dogman characters for this movie, but who knows, maybe they're planning a surprise cameo. Considering both characters share the same universe and have movies made by DreamWorks, it would make total sense. Even if a crossover doesn't happen, the Dogman movie may be a test to see if DreamWorks should invest in more Captain Underpants films or other children's books by Dave Pilkey. Just imagine if Dogman is a hit. Then DreamWorks decides to make tons of other adaptations of these awesome stories, slowly building a shared animation universe like Despicable Me and Sonic are doing. To keep the fun going, just click on one of the 2 videos we've left on the screen. You won't regret it. Thanks, and see you next time!